long tail keywords that just pop up in your blog, and there's stuff people find you and you don't even know that you wrote about it. iTunes is a lot more focused. There's different categories and subcategories, and people might drill down if they know they're looking for it. And they're going to see anywhere between 5 and 20 different podcasts if you're drilling down through that part of the store, depending on what iTunes is doing at that time. If you're not in there, people aren't going to find you. And unfortunately, recently, they kind of shuffled the travel section off to one side and made it really difficult to find. But so yeah, the more audience you have, the more reviews you have, the more likely you are to float to the top. So if you're thinking about doing this, building reviews from your early audience, from your fans, say, you know, it's a bit rough, but give us a 5-star review on iTunes, and feel free to look up Indie Travel and Amateur Traveler on iTunes and give us both 5-star reviews. This Week in Travel probably needs a couple as well, huh? But that's how you don't do SEO for iTunes. You get reviews, and that's what helps you build traffic. Do you want to add to that?
I want to disagree with that, but the one thing that you do is you found, for instance, most of my traffic comes from the back catalog. It comes from people saying, I want to go to the Federated States of Micronesia. Well, if you look for Federated States of Micronesia in iTunes, I'm going to guess you're not going to find a lot of podcasts, but you're going to find an episode of The Amateur Traveler. And so the keywords in your episodes, and using obvious names for your podcasts that are boring terms that you're trying to target rather than imaginative names. Don't do Amateur Travel, that was a bad. The domain was available, but I know somebody who does a tech podcast called Newzilla Podcast. Nobody knows what that is. Nobody's searching for that. So think about those sort of things.
All right, let's take some questions then about podcasting. Just your podcasting questions. Pam.
Can you guys talk a little bit about how you do your Skype recording? I'm really curious about that.
The way we do Skype recording for us is I am on a Mac, and on a Mac I use Call Recorder. If you're on a PC, look at a Hot Recorder. For me, every time you call me on Skype, Call Recorder starts recording it, and it just saves it as a MOV file, an iTunes movie. I have 3 steps that I have to do to split that into 2 tracks. I'm on one track, everybody else is on another. Another one that turns it into an AIFF file, which is the same file format that's on a CD. It's an audio interchange format file. And then another one, and then I put that into GarageBand, chop the beginning and the end. And for This Week in Travel, that's pretty much it at that point.
So it's basically just a plug-in for Skype that you
It's a plug-in for Skype that I use.
Okay, thank you.
Podcasting questions.
I was going to say, I use similar software, but the name of it's Audio Hijack Pro, but it does a very similar thing.
I actually have a question. Let's say you're in the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, and the merchant comes up to you and you're recording him trying to sell you a carpet or whatever. Does he know you're recording him? Do you have to let him know? I mean, if you're recording something, it's going to be broadcast.
That's an interesting question, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, how do they know?
In general, when I'm doing recording, I'm not recording conversations, and I'm not recording them without people knowing. You know, I'm calling people up to record them. That happened to be one where I wasn't actually planning on recording it. I was planning on recording background noise from the Grand Bazaar, and the same person who I had run into 2 days earlier, maybe it was longer than that, halfway earlier recognized me and came up to sell me the carpet. That's questionable, but I'll be honest about that. A better example would have been the choir I recorded, for instance, or something like that, you know, when I was in Tanzania. You know, that it's less of a personal interview. But yeah, that's a good question.
What amazes me about the merchants in the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul is how they can tell. They take one look at you and they know what language to speak. They know by your watch, your shoes, whatever. They know exactly which, and they speak 20 different languages, and they know exactly what country you're from.
Yeah, it's good fun giving them the runaround and just keep saying hello in several different languages.
Yeah,
they get fed
exactly.
Up. Yeah, it's great fun.
Yeah, the best response is, yeah, pity my ruski.
What I've started doing now with the Skype interviews that we do is, after I hit record, I say, just so it's on the record and it's all official, you know you're being recorded and this is going to be used for publication. So that's the verbal contract. There's legal intent. It's very clear. So no one's going to come back in 5 years and go, hey, you've got... No, I've got the original file. You're here. You said it was fine, and so that's that's the release that we're working with at the moment.
And usually I'm telling people, because I edit, and one of the reasons I edit is I do that format that is an interview show. I don't edit This Week in Travel because I just don't have time. Editing takes about 1 hour per 10 minutes of final audio. And that's not counting, I do an enhanced podcast that has pictures. So I spend 8 hours on a 35-minute episode of The Amateur Traveler. Longer if it's somebody who stutters. I've done that, I've taken out a stutter. I don't like to do that, it's a lot of work. But the reason I edit is it makes it easier for you to get interviews. When people know they're gonna sound good, they're more likely to want to do it or tell their friends it was a good experience. And I tell people, if you say something and it doesn't come out the way you say, just go ahead and say it again and I can cut out the first version. Unless, of course, it's wildly interesting.
Any more podcast questions from the audience? In the back.
Is there monetary for this?